Hello everyone. Well, in this video, I'm going to discuss about the patch request. Patch request is used for updating the partial information. So let us take the example of our Facebook web page. In our previous scenario, when we want to update all the user detail, we use the put request. In some situation, you want to update the partial information, such as just want to update the date of birth of the user. So in this scenario, I will just provide the updated date of birth in the Facebook UI and then click on the submit. The moment I click on the submit, a patch request will be sent to the server, which will have this updated information. And this patch request will have a request body that will contain the updated information. Once server receives the patch request, it is going to process that request. In our test application, we have an endpoint that supports the patch request. So let us look at the Swagger documentation of our test application. So this is the endpoint which supports the patch request. Now, in most of the cases, whenever you are using the patch request, a request body will be associated with that request. But in our case, the patch request uses the query parameters to update the value. So in this case, based on the job ID and the job title, the request is going to update the job description. So first, let me show you the working of this endpoint via Postman. So first, let me create a new job entry. And then I'm going to create the patch request, which is going to update this job entry job description. So HTTP method as patch. This is the base URL of the test application. And this is the context path. Then I will provide the value for all the query parameters. And then I will provide the updated information for job description property. And then I'm going to send the request. So we are getting 200 OK as the status code. And as you can see in the response, the job description has been updated to the new value. So let me send the get request to the test application, and this get request takes the query parameter. So the response contained the updated value of the job description property. Now let me show you how you can send the patch request in the Karate framework. So inside the top level package, I'm going to add one more package, and let me call it as patch request. Inside this package, I'm going to add a new feature file, and let me call it as update job description. Inside this feature file, the first keyword which I'm going to use is feature, followed by a short title and a small description. After this, I will use the background section to initialize the base URL, and then I will create the scenario. So this is the scenario which I'm going to automate. First, I will create a new job entry, and then using the patch request, I will update the job description of the newly created job entry. In order to create a new job entry, I will use our helper feature file. So let me copy these two statements in our current feature file. So basically this is going to generate a random job ID for us. And then I will create one more variable and call the helper feature file. And for calling the helper feature file, I will use call keyword followed by the read method. And here I will specify the location of our helper feature file. So let me open the location of this feature file. So this is the directory where our feature file is present, and the helper feature file is present in the parent directory. So that's why I will use double dot operator to specify the location of helper feature file. So double dot operator to reach to the parent directory which has our helper feature file. And this feature file takes multiple parameters. So I need to specify all those parameters value in the form of JSON object. To provide the value of underscore ID parameter, I will use the embedded expression as this is a JSON object. So this statement is going to create a new job entry for us in the test application. After that, I will send the patch request. Given path, this is the context path. As we have multiple query parameters, that's why I'm going to use the params keyword and specify the value of all the query parameter in a single statement. So again, this is a JSON object, so we need to use the embedded expression in order to access the value of variable. Let me create one more variable that will contain the updated information for the job description property. And I will use this variable in our query parameters. Again, this is a JSON object, so I need to use the embedded expression. And then I will specify the header. And then I will send the patch request. Then put the validation on the status code as well as the validation on the response. So in the response of the patch request, I'm going to add the validation on the job description just to check that whether the value of this property has been updated or not. Now this is not the JSON object, so I can use the variable directly here. Let me add the runner for this feature file. And let me run this runner. So our scenario is failing. Let us look at the exception. So here I need to use the method keyword. Let me rerun the runner. So again our scenario is failing. Let us look at the exception. And the exception is complaining about the request keyword. So as I mentioned earlier, most of the time the patch request will have a request body that contain the updated information. So in this case also we need to specify the request body. But in our test application, the patch request only accept the query parameter. So for this scenario, I will specify the empty request body. So here I will add one more statement and request and the empty body. And let me rerun the scenario. So now our scenario is passing. Let me send the patch request with the job ID that is not present in the test application. So in this case, we will receive 404. And let me add this scenario in our feature file. So let me make a duplicate copy of this scenario and also update the title. So let me update the value of ID query parameter. So in this case, the response status code should be 404. And let me run this runner. So both of our scenario are passing. Let me highlight one more scenario. If I fail to provide any of the query parameter along with this request, then the server is going to respond back with bad request. So let me remove the job title query parameter and then send the request. As you can see here, the server responded back with 400 status code, and in the response you can see the error message as job title is missing. So let me add this scenario also. So let me create a duplicate copy of this scenario and also update the title. I will remove the job title query parameter from the request. So in this scenario, we should receive 400, that is bad request, as well as I will add the validation on the response, that is checking for the error message. So and match response dot message, and this should be equal to this value. And let me run the runner. So all the scenario are passing. In this manner, you can send the patch request when you want to update the partial information.